The new Premier League season is less than 2 weeks away. Harry Kane wants his future decided before a ball is kicked. Hi, good evening. Welcome along to the Transfer Show. Now, also on the way, we get the inside track from Germany on Bayern Munich's bid for Harry Kane, plus news of another signing at Chelsea, and Liverpool have stepped up their search for a defensive midfielder. Well, it's been a tough old window for West Ham, but we have encouraging news on their pursuit of James Ward-Prowse on the way. And we discuss Michael Olise's future after Roy Hodgson admitted that Palace face a fight to keep the player. Let's start with Harry Kane, though. Michael, talk us through the developments today.
Yeah, hi, Mike. There's reports widespread that have come out today that Harry Kane is planning to stay at Spurs if no agreement with Bayern Munich or any other club has been reached before the opening game. Spurs face Brentford away on the opening weekend and Super Sunday, so that's less than 2 weeks away now. Spurs, though, not commenting on that, then no deadline being set on that, but it's just pretty big development, I'd say, today on that. Few ways to look at it. I think it maybe, it's one of potential excitement for Spurs fans to sort of say to, hopefully Spurs will make some big signings over the next few weeks, show Harry Kane that he should be staying at Tottenham Hotspur, or there's another way of looking at it, and it's potentially the Kane camp maybe looking at it and wanting maybe buying to ramp up their bids now. So I think everyone is in broad agreement now that's a decision needs to be made over the next couple of weeks.
But does a deadline mean anything?
No, it's not official. So, I mean, while this is quite a big story to come out, who's to say that Harry Kane doesn't start the season at Brentford and then Spurs receive a bid they simply cannot turn down and Harry Kane wants to talk to the club. So it's not an official deadline at all. So we'll wait and see. But it's another development, and on another day, we're talking about Harry Kane to Bayern Munich.
Yeah, I mean, deadline is such a big word when it comes to this particular potential transfer. But I think privately, I'm sure Tottenham and Ange Postecoglou will want this done sooner rather than later, simply because if Harry Kane is to leave the club, then I think, ideal scenario, get it done and dusted for the money that they want as soon as they can, so that Ange Postecoglou can actually rebuild with the money that they'll get for Harry Kane. It's not going to be in Tottenham's benefit if this drags and drags and drags until the final week of the window, because then you find yourself in a situation where if Tottenham believe he was going to stay and then he ends up going quite late, if you're Tottenham going into the market with all of this money, trying to bring in a striker, a selling club is going to know that you're desperate to do that deal, and they'd only do one thing and raise the price.
Tottenham tax.
Well, exactly, yeah. So that's the problem that Tottenham are going to have and Tottenham are going to face. But having said that, Tottenham are a big club, and I'm sure that they will have done due diligence on potential replacements already, so that if and when Harry Kane was to leave, I'm sure there'll be one or two players that they can accelerate on where they would have agreed a deal in principle behind the scenes for before they go into the market. Because I can't see a scenario where they would sell Harry Kane and then they'll start from zero, let's bring in a replacement. It just simply wouldn't happen that way.
And also, I remember, was it 10 odd years ago now, when Tottenham sold Gareth Bale to Real Madrid? Negotiations went on all summer with Real Madrid and Tottenham Hotspur. However, the difference back then, Spurs had pretty much signed 6 or 7 players to replace Gareth Bale. Now, a lot of them didn't turn out to be a great success, but that was immaterial at the time. Spurs were spending that Bale money, and he ended up leaving. I think it was either the day before deadline day or on deadline day for £86 million, which back then was mega money. Now, as Dharmesh is saying, I'm sure there's targets, there'd be alternatives, there's players to look at in the future. And Ange Postecoglou, the way he likes his strikers to play. But at the end of the day, this is the England captain. This is England's record goal scorer. This is Tottenham's record goal scorer, one of Tottenham's greatest ever players. And another conundrum as well for Ange Postecoglou ahead of the opening game of the season is Hugo Lloris is likely to leave the club. Who does he give the armband to if it is against Brentford? Who's your club captain? Harry Kane? Well, we're still not 100% certain he is still going to be at the club. So it's an interesting couple of weeks.
Hasn't Postecoglou got players already in the building who play the striker role more the way he likes to play than Harry Kane? I'm saying like Richarlison, who does run in behind. Hasn't he got players already? So there's not a panic to spend Kane money if it does materialise?
I think what Ange Postecoglou just really wants is some kind of clarity on the situation. I think he's answered things really well when they've been away in Thailand and Australia. We also had that guy throwing the Harry Kane shirt at him. Postecoglou handled it really well after that as well. But I think it's some sort of finality at some stage because, as you say, he does have his style of the strikers he likes. But at the end of the day, this is Harry Kane. This is a guy that scored 30 league goals last year in a really, really poor Tottenham side. And Ange Postecoglou has a press conference on Friday ahead of a friendly against Shakhtar Donetsk on Sunday. And, of course, he knows that the majority of the press conference is going to be dominated by Harry Kane. I'm sure he just wants it done as soon as he can. But as he and most managers realise at the top echelon, these things don't get done early and they do drag on.
No, so Kane wants it all sorted. But for that to happen, Bayern Munich need to match Tottenham's valuation. Florian Plettenberg can give us the latest from Germany.
Harry Kane, he definitely wants to join Bayern Munich, and Daniel Levy, he's aware of that fact. Harry Kane, he can become the top earner of Bayern Munich and he can sign a contract until 2028. Bayern Munich, to my information, has submitted an offer of around 95 million euro with possible add-ons included. And I was told that Bayern Munich wants to improve that offer in order to finalize the Harry Kane deal in the next days. The club bosses of Bayern Munich, they are very optimistic, very positive to sign Harry Kane.
Before we reflect on what Florian has just said, something's just dropped, Darmish.
Yeah, this could help out Bayern Munich with regard to trying to buy Harry Kane, with regard to funds, because Sadio Mane has now confirmed his move to the Saudi Pro League club Al Nassr. Al Nassr just announced it in the past 10 or 15 minutes. We think it's a deal worth £24 million to Bayern Munich. It's probably worth a bit more to Sadio Mane. It's worth around £34 million in salary to him. But £24 million goes to Bayern Munich. Wages for Sadio Mane come off the books as well. That could be quite significant for Bayern Munich.
20 million difference in valuation, and you've just got 24 in the building.
Well,
it's done.
There is that, but there's also the wages situation as well, because that frees up a lot of money for Bayern Munich as well. So this could be a significant move for Bayern Munich, having sold Sadio Mane now in their pursuit of Harry Kane. So let's see if that develops now.
We will. So Florian, before we broke that news, was saying that 95 million euros is what Bayern have offered. How much do they need to go back, do you think, to get Harry Kane?
Well, look, this is an opinion, but we have to change that euros into pounds to start with, in my opinion. We were told yesterday that there's still quite a way in valuation of difference. Our reporter Paul Gilmore said around £20 million, £25 million as reported elsewhere. So that's where I see it, Mike. I think, look, if that euros turns into pounds, I'd have to have a serious discussion because it's a lot of money. Look, Spurs ideally want Harry Kane to sign a new contract, but we've been told he won't sign a new contract this summer. We've also been told all summer that Tottenham do not want to sell. Of course they don't. But if they get an offer of around £95 million with bonuses, £100 million promise, they will have to seriously consider it because it's a lot of money. And although they'll want him to sign a new deal as the months go on, they're taking risks in the sense that, one, they're hoping that Spurs will have a great season under Ange Postecoglou. I think there's a lot of excitement from Spurs fans for Ange Postecoglou.
Yeah, we've been here before, though.
Yeah,
Spurs hoping for a great season, and then Harry Kane has been the lone star.
Yeah, it's the ultimate risk, isn't it? It really is the ultimate risk. And at the end of the day, Ange Postecoglou, unlike Antonio Conte when it was a rolling deal, then we'll see how we get on at the end of the season. This is a 4-year contract with Ange Postecoglou. Why? Because he knows this is going to take some time. Spurs aren't in Europe for the first time in 13 years next season. That means Harry Kane won't be in any European competition, regardless of him being a Champions League standard player. He's not going to be in any forms of Europe next season. That might help Postecoglou on the training field, but there's going to be a lot of changes. But what does Kane potentially want to see coming up now? What do the fans want to see? They want to see defenders coming in, 2 top-class defenders. This team's conceded 63 league goals last season. A lot needs to be done. Loads need to be incomings and outgoings at Spurs, so loads need to be, but a lot always needs to be done when we've got the transfer window on August the 31st. But I'm looking forward to hearing Postecoglou on Friday at the press conference about how he feels about the Kane situation. He's a guy I like listening to, and of course, there potentially could be an update on incomings, but I expect it to ramp up now.
Yeah, September 1st, the window closed.
Sorry, September
1st.
Yeah.
All right, that's enough Spurs. Let's talk Chelsea. What's going on in the midfield situation?
Yeah, they've definitely got one in. That's been confirmed today. That's Lesley Ugochukwu. He's joined from Rennes for £23.5 million. He's signed a 7-year contract with the option of a further 12 months, only 19 years old. So while the statement has said he's with the squad in the United States and he's, integrated very, very well with them, it's our information that Chelsea are still slightly leaning towards letting him go on loan for the forthcoming season, getting more first-team action and then coming back as part of the first-team squad proper the following season. Strasbourg is likely to be his destination for that. With regard to 2 players and 2 midfielders that they want to bring in that they can put straight into the first-team squad, no secret, we know who they are. Moises Caicedo from Brighton. No formal talks are happening just at the moment with regard to Chelsea and Brighton over Moises Caicedo, but he does remain their primary target, and there's strong interest in Southampton's Romeo Lavia. Now, there hasn't been a formal bid as yet, but we're told that personal terms would not be a problem for either Caicedo or Romeo Lavia. Now, while the issues for both of these players would be valuation, particularly with Caicedo, Chelsea have the added competition of Liverpool with regard to Romeo Lavia, because Liverpool have gone in today with a second bid to Southampton in excess of around £40 million. That's been rejected as well by Southampton. They're standing firm. They want at least £50 million for Romeo Lavia. He's been featuring in pre-season, almost a message from Southampton to say, until you meet that valuation, he is going to be our player. So expect both Liverpool and Chelsea to really ramp up their interest in Romeo Lavia. OK,
I like that. Let's talk Liverpool then. So after Lavia, are they after any other midfield options?
Yes, Mike. They officially made contact with Fluminense over the possibility of signing midfielder Andre. Now, it was heightened after he was capped by Brazil. He's only 22 and they're reluctant to let him go. But we're told, our colleague Melissa Reddy says she's told that the player's keen on a move to Anfield. A fee around £20 million has been discussed. In an ideal world, Jurgen Klopp brings in 2 midfielders and a defender possibly as well. So that is one certainly to keep an eye on top of Lavia.
Darmesh, my producer in the last hour is a West Ham fan. He had his head in his boots. They said, we've got all this Declan Rice money, we can't spend it. Have you got some good news for him and the West Ham fans?
Yeah, it's been quite frustrating for West Ham United so far in this transfer window. There was a bit of a drawn-out saga with Declan Rice, but they got the money that they wanted. And then it's a case of how can they replace Declan Rice. Well, there could be some positive news, and it's reaching us in the past hour or so at Sky Sports News, and that is that West Ham, having had a £20 million bid rejected by Southampton for James Ward-Prowse, since then talks have continued and they've now reached an advanced stage. We are told that West Ham now are increasingly optimistic that they can get a deal for James Ward-Prowse over the line. And what's more, I think they're encouraged by Ward-Prowse's desire to come to West Ham United, because we're told that personal terms are not expected to be an issue with this deal. It's just sorting out that valuation between the two clubs. But we're told now that talks are at an advanced stage between the two clubs, and West Ham increasingly confident now that maybe, just maybe, they can get this one over the line.
So that could be happening. If you're a West Ham fan then, Michael, would you be worried? Because they haven't made any signings so far, the only Premier League club not to have done that.
They're not the only club in the past transfer history to have received a big sale from a top player, and then other clubs are aware of it. I think ultimately, like we've said, there's still there's a good chunk of the window left. There's a month left. I always find with the transfer window, Mike, we always, the way it's been over the last couple of years, we get a really busy June. Then clubs go on their pre-season tours of America and all around the world, and then they all come back and sit down and go, right, what do we need? I mean, you look at it, Russell Martin, the Southampton manager himself, has said, my team Friday against Sheffield United, Sheffield Wednesday live on Sky, is going to be completely different, maybe, to a few weeks' time. that's the reality of what managers have to face at the moment. But of course, if this does go through, then David Moyes will be absolutely delighted, I'm sure.
Yeah, I bet he will. All right, let's take a break. Now, when we come back, we'll have an update on Manchester United's striker search. Could Manchester City be in the market for Michael Olise from Crystal Palace? Because, of course, Riyad Mahrez is gone. Well, Roy Hodgson has had some pretty interesting things to say. That's coming up next. See you in a moment. Hello again. We're going to talk Manchester United and the deal that seems to be going on and on and on. Rasmus Højlund. You can go on and on about it now. Is it done? Is it nearly done?
I can nearly stop going on and on about it.
Oh, please.
The search for number 9 is almost at an end. Rasmus Højlund is now in the UK. He's been having a medical with Manchester United. Once he's completed that, he will sign off on the terms on a 5-year contract. That comes with the option of a further 12 months as far as Manchester United are concerned. Just a reminder of the deal, it's worth £72 million. United will pay £64 million up front, plus £8 million in performance-related add-ons. A formal announcement on this deal should come later on this week. And if it does, the earlier it comes, the more chance Højlund will have to maybe play a part in one of Manchester United's 2 last pre-season friendlies. They play twice this weekend. You'd expect different squads at both games. They've got Lens on Saturday and then they've got Athletic Bilbao on Sunday. And of course, in 13 days' time, on the Monday Night Football, United kick off their Premier League season at home to Wolves.
Darmish, are Manchester United overpaying for potential rather than proven ability?
I mean,
money.
This is the argument that a lot of people have had about the cost of Rasmus Højlund. One thing we should make clear, first of all, is that Atalanta actually went in to these negotiations wanting £77 million guaranteed. So United have brought them down to £64 million guaranteed. And people will say, look, he's only had one season proper, like in one of the European football's top leagues, scored 9 goals in the league for Atalanta. Is that enough for such a price tag? You've got to take into account when a foreign club, particularly from Italy and Spain, sell to a Premier League club, they know that they can charge more. Add to that, when you're selling to Manchester United, clubs feel they can charge more as well. And as far as Manchester United are concerned, everybody knew that they wanted to bring in a number 9. So that was an issue that United had whenever they were going into negotiations with any club for a striker. But on the flip side, a lot of Manchester United fans will also point to the fact that Erik ten Hag is someone that they trust. And a lot of Manchester United signings in the last 3 transfer windows have been through Erik ten Hag. There have been players that have played under him or players that he knows very, very well. And this is a player that he's looked at for a long time, and he has been pushing for this transfer, like he did with Mason Mount, like he did with Andre Onana. And now he's got all 3, well, nearly got all 3 of those players. And I think United have that trust in Erik ten Hag, given the way the first season went, to win a trophy, to finish 3rd, given where they were the previous season. I think that they're willing to give that slack to ten Hag. OK,
they're going to give him the slack, as Darmesh says. But as I say, this is a player who is potential only at the moment. And he's going to be playing for Manchester United, where the spotlight is huge. Is this a gamble?
I think they all are with Manchester United and that fee, but he's already being compared to Erling Haaland because his name's yeah, I mean, I feel a bit sorry for him actually already. But it's like Darmish said, I think Erik ten Hag has earned the right to sort of pick who he wants. People sort of ridiculed Lisandro Martinez deal. He turned out to be one of the best signings last season. Casemiro, one of the best signings of last season. Christian Eriksen, probably the best free transfer of last season. So, for me, Erik ten Hag knows what he wants. Last week he said he doesn't want to talk about transfers, but then he did go on to say this club needs a new striker. And at the end of the day, it looks like they're getting one. Yeah, all right, let's stick with strikers. Let's talk Kylian Mbappé. That contract extension deadline came and went. What happens now? Well, the dream of Kylian Mbappé and the PSG and winning everything in the Champions League, it looks like that dream is really coming to an end. It's turning into a real nightmare for PSG right now. They are not happy. This deadline look, we know he wasn't really going to change his mind. That would have been a huge surprise. I think the key line here, Mike, he's also turned down the offer of a clause inserted into a contract extension, which would have had him guaranteed he could leave next summer. He was not interested in that or any clause whatsoever. The football world believe that he's going to Real Madrid next summer. I mean, more bad news for PSG. He's entitled to receive a loyalty bonus of worth up to 60 million euros. Now, he's not going to get that up front, but he will eventually get that. PSG are just saying, we just want you to go now, whether it's a permanent deal, a loan deal. Their phone is open for any club. I know Jurgen Klopp sort of dismissed it earlier, but any football club to just put in an offer. They do not want him to leave for nothing. We know last week Al Hilal put in a world record bid. Mbappé didn't want to know. So it does seem that he will just hold out and wait for Real Madrid next season. PSG is saying, please, anyone, phone us up. We'll talk.
That brings with it. Yeah, but that brings with it its own problems, because if they've made it clear that they want to sell because he's only got a year left on his contract, and they feel that he's already agreed terms with Real Madrid for next summer for free, what is to stop a club, maybe even Real Madrid, coming in with an offer that's well short of what Kylian Mbappé is worth? If we're looking at today's market, you're looking in excess of 150, dare I say, close to £200 million for Kylian Mbappé. I mean, Al Hilal were willing to pay £259 million, but I think that's a different case. I don't think that would be the market value for Kylian Mbappé, but you're looking at the thick end of 150 to £200 million. Why would any club do that when the selling club have made it clear that they need to sell him? It's the same situation in a way that Tottenham find themselves in with Harry Kane, which is why we always questioned when Paul's here, when Michael's here, why would Bayern Munich go as high as Tottenham's asking price? They don't have to, really. They can leave it as late as they want and say, actually, we'll give you X amount. It's short of what you value him at, but you're not going to get anything otherwise. That's the danger for PSG just now. The difference with the Kane and the Mbappé situation is it seems a lot more friendly between Tottenham and Harry Kane now than it did 2 years ago, whereas it looks very, very bitter between PSG and Kylian Mbappé. But PSG probably have to look at themselves and say, we gave him that contract of 2 years plus a player option for the third year. We gave him the decision to make. So they can't blame anyone really but themselves, even though they probably had a high degree of trust that Mbappé was going to extend and trigger that 1 year option. He's chosen not to.
They even gave him the wrong shirt, didn't they? With the wrong year on the back, didn't they? If I remember.
Well, no, they said 2025.
Yeah.
So it was painted as a 3 year contract, but it was 2 years plus one. But that plus one is where the problems lie, because the plus one can be triggered by the player. You don't often hear an option. We always talk about contracts, don't we? Like we've been talking about the new Chelsea signing. It's a 7 year contract plus the option of a further year. That option is with the club. Yeah. Because they want to protect the asset. If he's coming towards the end of his contract, they can extend that contract and still get enough of a transfer fee for it to be worthwhile. This time it's worked completely the opposite way. A year after signing a supposed 3 year contract, we're in a position where Kylian Mbappé has entered the final year of his contract once again.
Michael, is there any chance that Mbappé will say, do you know what? I'm not going. I don't care if I have to sit in the stand for a season. That's what I'm going to do. Is that possible?
It's the last thing PSG want.
Surely it's the last thing he wants as well. There's a European Championship coming up.
Well, we were hearing for Al Hilal last week, didn't we? Talking about a year deal or 2 year deal. He wasn't interested in that for a year. So I think it's more on the club. And the worry they've got is that that one of the greatest players in the world could be leaving them on a free next year. To me, it just seems Kylian Mbappé is very relaxed about this, and he's probably got a clear idea where he's going to be playing his football next year.
I think he probably has. Give us someone who does want to play for PSG, Dharmesh.
Well, I mean, Ousmane Dembélé, he's obviously...
Oh, yeah,
he's
sorry.
He's keen to go.
Oh. Who is that, then?
He's
yes, it's
keen to go.
Dembélé, Michael.
That's
yes, he's keen to go. I mean, they've triggered a clause in his contract, which this is quite a new one on us as well. It gives them 5 days to negotiate his transfer to Barcelona. Look, he had a 50 million release clause in his contract. until midnight last night. He wants to move to PSG, we're told, but he wants to make sure Barcelona get a fair price as possible. Now, that's quite a turnaround because he had some falling outs with Barcelona in the past, but he realises he's had a number of injuries. Barca signed him from Borussia Dortmund for 135.5 million in 2017. But PSG, we're told, are confident, and this adds to looking at the way their new model now with the big name players leaving. I'm not saying he's not a big name, of course, but he's French, because we're all told they're also in talks to sign Randall Colomani from Eintracht Frankfurt, French guys, French forward as well. So more on that as we get it. But it looks like they will be bringing one in, so it's not all doom and gloom, and I'm sure that will dominate it with Mbappé leaving being such a big name.
And didn't they have to get that bid in? As you said, there was a deadline because the price doubled, didn't it?
Yeah,
after the
so they've now got, you know, a bit of time to negotiate with him. But yeah, it's a bit of a new one on us. But yeah, we'll see if they can get that one over the line, because obviously the Mbappé one could be a bit of a disaster for them.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, this will get Manchester City fans listening. Michael Elise at Crystal Palace, Michael. There's been talk that City might be interested as a replacement for Riyad Mahrez, and Roy Hodgson might have given City some encouragement. Is that right?
Yeah, possibly. Roy Hodgson was talking after a pre-season match against Seville, and he said clubs are circling around him, and we're going to have a fight on our hands to make sure he stays with us. We had two outstanding wingers who are almost the best in the league, Michael on the right and Wilf on the left. We don't have Wilf anymore. It is a concern, of course, because he is an excellent winger, Michael Elise. He's currently injured at the moment, but of course there is interest, we're told, from Manchester City and Chelsea. Roy Hodgson went on to then say as well that they need a few more bodies in as well. There is good news though. Matheus Franca, that should get done. Young Brazilian, creative player, attacker, who Palace have wanted for some time. Looks like that fee has been agreed with Flamengo. He said his goodbyes. David Luiz has even put on his Instagram, "I'll always look after you. Good luck in England." So Palace will be very happy if that gets over the line. But talking about replacing Wilfried Zaha, for me, that's a very big call to make for such a youngster coming into a new league, new environment, new culture. I think Roy Hodgson is clear with these quotes. I mean, they're quite big quotes. So he's talking about, you know, working with the chairman and the sporting director as well, because I think Roy realises that it's a big job, it's a big season, and a few years ago that Palace were so reliant on Wilfried Zaha. They're not anymore, not at all. Elise is a brilliant winger who's going to get even better.
Fine player.
Eze, he is having the most amazing pre-season. We could be talking about him all season. He could be in Gareth Southgate's squad for the Euros next summer. So Palace aren't over-reliant on players anymore, which is great for him. But I'm sure there's a little slight concern from Roy Hodgson that it might be looking a little thin, but I'm sure Palace and Dougie Freeman will be sorting that out.
Yeah, OK, we'll keep an eye on that. Dharmesh, yesterday we mentioned there was a possible swap deal between Chelsea and Juve for Lukaku and Vlahovic.
Yeah.
Any movement on that?
Yeah, but there's a little bit more information on it. Look, Juve are definitely exploring the possibility of a swap between Dusan Vlahovic and Romelu Lukaku. Now, one thing we have been told is it's thought that Juventus would actually want cash plus Lukaku for them to release Dusan Vlahovic. If you look at the ages of the players, Lukaku's 30 years old now, Vlahovic is 23. So that's why Juventus will say we need some money in this deal as well. But look, transfers on their own are difficult to do. They're made even more complex when you've got a swap deal involved, because you're relying on both players wanting to go to those particular clubs as well. And add to that, Chelsea actually looked into the possibility of signing Vlahovic earlier on in the window, but we think that the wages were a bit of a stumbling block. Now, Lukaku's future has been up in the air for the whole of this transfer window. He wanted to go back to Inter. Inter wanted to bring him back. Then he started talking to Juventus, and Inter said, we don't want to borrow you anymore. So that option went out. Juventus, we knew, could do a deal for around 40 million euros, which Chelsea probably would have wanted a little bit more, but they would be on the right path to try and accept a deal of that magnitude. The only thing was Juventus had to raise the funds by selling someone. And there was Al Hilal as well, but it's thought that Lukaku wanted to stay in European football. But the swap, or the potential swap, would actually solve every issue if it can be done, because Lukaku obviously has not got a future at Chelsea and he would get his move to Juventus. Vlahovic is someone that Juventus are prepared to let go, and Chelsea would get a number 9 who potentially they are still looking for, even though they've been using Nkunku and Nicholas Jackson, and both have played very, very well in pre-season. But I'm sure Mauricio Pochettino would want to strengthen the competition in those areas. So definitely one to watch, but it looks like a really, really complex deal to do.
Yeah, it's like musical chairs. We'll see what happens when the music stops. All right, let's take a break. When we come back, we're going to get some more on Harry Kane. We're going to speak to a former Tottenham defender and get his view. See you in a moment. Hello again. We're going to talk Everton now. Michael, they had a pretty tough time of things last season. Any reinforcements on the horizon?
Yeah, I mean, last week they finally signed Arnaut Danjuma on a season-long loan, and I feel he's going to have a good season at Everton. And a couple of bits of news for Everton fans today. Sporting Lisbon striker Youssef Chermeti is expected to undergo a medical later this week over a move to Everton. Now, he's expected to sign in time to face his current club, Sporting. Now, we understand Everton will pay £12 million plus £3 million add-ons for Chermeti. Another Everton line coming into us. They could be giving up their attempts to sign Wilfred Gnonto. They're just
giving up on it?
Giving up on their attempts. They're facing a decision. They've had multiple approaches rejected by Leeds and can now be forced to turn their attentions to other targets. So more on that one as we get it. But that's a development amongst, of course, we've reported all summer of their interest in Gnonto.
All right, OK. I promised you a former Tottenham defender to talk Harry Kane. We've got him now, and Ramon Vega joins us. Ramon, very good evening. Lovely to speak to you again. So, do Spurs need to sell Harry?
What kind of saga are we talking again, being honest here? Good evening, first of all, from Dubai. Absolutely boiling over here. By the way, it's just like the whole producers and presenters, just a shirt I have on, by the way, because otherwise I'm boiling over here. Listen, this saga with Kane has been going on for years now. It's completely mismanaged, the whole transfer with Harry Kane. I think we're talking Harry Kane, a 30 years old, top striker. He's record scoring around the Premier League, Spurs as well. And now we're still here in 1st of August. We're still talking about if he leaves or not. For Tottenham, first of all, as a team, as a club, it's kind of uncertainty, but at the same time, he's one of the major assets they have within the club to sell it to gain some money. At this point now, I feel sorry for him because in a way, he has not won anything until now, but he's been a great player for Spurs. He's done fantastic for the club, and he still doesn't know if he can go or not. Another way, I will say, he's an English boy. He loves London. He loves England. He's quite settled in England as well. He has a family here. With 30 years old, to potentially transfer to a new country and another club, it's not easy, I'm telling you that now. But most important, he doesn't go just to one club. He goes to potentially Bayern Munich, one major global club. You know, if you compare the Spurs, obviously Bayern Munich is without a doubt one of the biggest clubs in Europe, you know. And so that's the attractivity for him to go. But from the point of club, from managing his transfer, is absolutely awful, and I think the quicker they can actually do this, the better.
Yeah, are Spurs in a bit of a corner here, Ramon? Because it's a season on from the last time we spoke about Kane leaving, so that's a season less that Spurs have got to try and keep hold of him. They could lose him for nothing next season. Now, Spurs cannot let that happen, surely.
Well, absolutely correct there with you there. Well, listen, this doesn't start. These mistakes with recruitment and within the club has not been started the last 2 years, and not just for Harry Kane. I think the global kind of aspect of recruitment with Spurs has been a sham the last 3 to 4 years. You know, considering, yes, a few years back they went to qualify for the Champions League, but that's just hiding the major problem with recruitment at Spurs been having for years. I think what we're seeing now at Spurs is something that they've been put into the corner from a major mismanagement on the recruitment side point of view. And now, I think from Daniel Levy's point of view, he's against the wall with Harry Kane. Harry Kane's, he's in a strong position. He can actually say, well, I can stay here and leave for free next year, and Spurs doesn't get anything, where it will be the wrong decision from Spurs and business point of view, but in a way. So Daniel Levy has to do something about it here now. If he's not done until now, I say Harry can convince him to prolong it for the next 3 to 5 years. From my point of view, he needs to sell it. He needs to get that money into the club, because he needs to recruit some very, very good players after Harry Kane goes. At the same time, Harry Kane is not Tottenham. Tottenham, it will be always there with Harry or without Harry.
Ramon, it's Michael here. Look, Spurs, I'm sure, and no real doubt here, will be stronger next season with Harry Kane. However, look, I know you love Tottenham, but I know you're a big Celtic man as well, and how big a fan you are of Ange Postecoglou. Knowing Ange Postecoglou, if Tottenham did accept a bid eventually from Bayern Munich, do you believe Ange Postecoglou has players in the back of his mind? You know that special system he has with the strikers. And do you kind of feel a little bit sorry that it's dragging on for Postecoglou, because the fans have really taken to him, haven't they?
Well, listen, I think Angie came to Spurs, and, you know, Mike, at the beginning, I was defending him a lot, because some of the Spurs supporters were quite snobby about it. You know, is he good enough for him, for the club? But no, let's be honest, Tottenham is quite fortunate to have such a manager at this situation the club is in. Not an easy club to walk in as a manager, especially with the saga with Harry Kane, especially with some recruitment issues within around the squad. He, without a doubt, he comes in to give certain tranquility. That's what I like, number one. Number two, he's a person where pretty much he knows what he wants on the pitch, and he shows that at Celtic in a very, very great way, because he played fantastic football, not just only played football, but also he was winning for Celtic Glasgow as well. You can say now, yes, Celtic in Scotland, but I'm telling you, I was playing there. Celtic is a massive club, and Celtic you have to play every week in, week out. It's like a cup final. So for that, the pressure is always high. So he understands, first of all, the pressure. Number two, he understands also, Michael, to manage a club potentially with less budget and potentially some turbulence. It's not the first time he's been in such a situation as a manager. He must also calculate it in when he took the job that potentially Harry Kane is leaving. OK, so Harry Kane, as I say, he's a 30-year-old player at the moment. He's in his top of his career. He has to make a major decision himself personally, but at the moment, as the club has to make a huge decision as well. But for Ange, I think he needs to calculate without him also what is the future for Spurs. And the more important thing is, the quicker Ange knows what's going on with Harry Kane, the better solution he can get potentially for Spurs going forward.
Ramon, does Harry Kane suit the way that Ange Postecoglou likes to set up his teams?
Absolutely. Ange Postecoglou, he loves playing forward. He loves to play the football, holding up, attacking football. If you watch Celtic last season, he completely converted Celtic to an absolute beautiful game of watching Celtic, and also in a very classy way. You know, he had some quality players he brought in as well. He actually taught them how the tactics, and also given the freedom. The one thing Ange will definitely change, compare maybe to Antonio Conte. Antonio Conte was very strict and maybe very kind of not flexible, only his way. And sometimes you can't do that. You need to have some flexibility and leave the players, give their skills and their freedom, let them play what they actually talents what they have. And I think Ange will definitely give that freedom. And Harry Kane, if you give him the freedom, you know what he's capable to do it. And if he has surrounded all these players, given the freedom to give him the assist to score, there's no doubt Harry Kane will fit very well in his concept.
Hi, Ramon. It's Darmesh here. Look, we're less than 2 weeks until the start of the Premier League season. As we stand now, what does a successful season look like for Tottenham with Harry Kane? What does a successful season look like without Harry Kane, and are they the same?
Well, listen, let's start without Harry Kane to start with. I think, listen, you can't go worse what last season we had with Spurs. So for that point of view, for Ange, he has not too much pressure, because he can't be worse than last season. So he can only improve what last season had from Spurs. I think with the turbulence and potential complexity of the recruitment at Spurs it is at the moment, I would say if we qualify for Europe, not Champions League, Europe, it would be a big bonus. But also Secondly, maybe potentially win the trophy, because Ange wants to win something. There's no doubt. He's not coming in here just, okay, I was at Spurs for a year or two. He's here to make a mark as a manager, and I'm convinced he will do that. So, but at the same time, he had also, I have to say, at Celtic, the first 2-3 months when he arrived, difficulties to start to get the club, the team in place to play well. So it will happen the similar in the next 2 to 3 months, maybe not straight away, but within 2 to 3 months, that team will start to play to win something. Is it going to win something to win the top 4? I don't think so. They don't have the capacity this season. Maybe just qualify Europe, and maybe the FA or the League Cup, something to win there.
Ramon Vega, as always, a huge pleasure to speak to you. Thank you very much for coming on. Try and keep cool out there.
Have a lovely evening, guys.
Thank you. Ramon Vega, great value. All right, next we'll bring you the rest of the day's transfer news. That includes updates from Arsenal and West Ham. We're back in a couple of moments. Hello again. Can't believe we're in the final part of the transfer show already. Still so much to get through. Let's talk West Ham, Dharmesh. They thought they were going to finally bring someone in, but they're not. Tell us.
Yeah, I mean, we brought you some positive news earlier on with James Ward-Prowse close now, we think, to going to West Ham. But the deal to take the Manchester City forward, Carlos Borges, to West Ham United is now off. There was a £14 million move, as good as done for the under-19 Portugal international, but it appears there were delays in getting it done due to agent fees and personal terms. And I was told that West Ham's belief is that the player was now on the verge of agreeing a deal with Ajax. And it turns out that that belief is right, because in the last few minutes it's been confirmed to me that Manchester City have agreed a deal in principle with Ajax for around €20 million, so it's worth all in around £17 million for the signing of Carlos Borges. And you'd expect Manchester City, as they always do when they sell young players who have got a lot of potential, even though he's only got a year left, to have some sort of sell-on or buyback within that contract. But it now looks like Carlos Borges off to West Ham, on for Ajax.
Michael, you've got a Sheffield United line.
Yes, disappointing news for Sheffield United as well. As Ilman Ndiaye is going to Marseille. Now, Sheffield United have said openly on a statement on their website they've reluctantly accepted a bid. Paul Heckingbottom and the management and the board wanted him as the forefront of their campaign in the Premier League this coming season, and they offered him a new lucrative contract, but he wanted to go back to the team he supported as a boy. So real disappointment for Sheffield United back in the Premier League, and I'm sure a few fans will be slightly concerned.
And Inter fishing in the Premier League pond as well.
Yeah, we spoke earlier in the programme about how they pulled out of a deal for Romelu Lukaku. Their next option was Folarin Balogun from Arsenal. Arsenal's valuation of Balogun is thought to be around £50 million. So Inter weren't willing to do a deal at those prices. They were thinking, could we do a loan with an obligation, maybe raise the initial cost and structure the deal? But it seems that Arsenal want to do a permanent deal, and their value is £50 million. Monaco are another club of a number of clubs that are interested in Balogun as well. So it looks like Inter now have switched their focus to the West Ham United striker Gianluca Scamacca. They had a €20 million bid rejected. They're expected to go back in with €25 million guaranteed plus €5 million in add-ons. And we think that Scamacca is open to that move. He only joined last summer for around £35 million, 16 starts for West Ham, 8 goals. But if Inter can get this one over the line, he'll be an Inter player sooner rather than later. Really, really quickly, you mentioned Balogun. Anybody else heading for the exit door at Arsenal? I think they're looking at a few exits. Albert Sambi Lokonga in talks with Burnley as it stands at the minute. Vincent Kompany, a big fan of his, had him at Anderlecht. He's the one who sold him to Arsenal when he was manager there. There's interest in Cedric Suarez as well from a number of clubs, and Nicolas Pepe and Nuno Tavares. I think Arsenal want to recoup some money after spending £200 million in this window so far. Excellent. We've run out of time. We need a whole show for all those Arsenal departures next time. Michael, Dharmesh, fantastic to see you. Ramon, brilliant. We love you. So much more coming up on Sky Sports News. Right now, we're back tomorrow with the Transfer Show. We'll see you.